Okay, welcome back. We're going to go through the protein intake worksheet today. And you can see I've already kind of started inputting some numbers, so I will show you exactly where those came from. So we can start here with energy intake. And the first tab is my recommendation. So if we come over here to the macronutrient targets section of your nutrition report, you can see that I ate 1,602 calories, and my recommendation was 1,446. So here we go, 1,602, 1,446, just plop those numbers right in there. And then Chronometer already calculates the percentage of that recommendation, 111% consumed. So I will enter that right there. Next, we're looking for my recommended intake of protein. So come to the protein column on the macronutrient targets section, and you can see this first number, 83.7. That's what I actually ate. So I rounded that up to 84 and put it here in my intake. And then my recommendation was 72.3 or 72 grams. So to figure out how many calories that is, we'll grab our calculator and we'll take 72 grams times 4. That's the recommendation. To figure out our intake in calories, we want to take your actual intake, so this 84 number, times 4, and we get 336. So we'd write that in my intake in calories. With this number, we can fill in this box here, percent of calories consumed from protein. So I consumed 336 calories from protein and 1,600 calories in total. So I take 336 divided by 1,602, and I get 0.209. So if I move the decimal point over twice or multiply that by 100, then I see 20.9. So I'll round that up to 21% of calories consumed from protein. For this percent of recommendation consumed, you can look right over here at the macronutrient targets section and see that I consumed 116% of my recommended protein intake. Great. So now the thing that you need to do is look in your notes for the acceptable macronutrient distribution range for protein and determine if this number is within or outside that range. To calculate your protein RDA, remember we did this in class, so you can go back to what we did in class. And then to calculate the percentage of the RDA you consumed, you would divide your intake in grams by your RDA and multiply that number by 100. So next we come to the part where we're filling out protein sources. You can just leave these blank. Basically, this is just designed to help you figure out where you're getting protein in your diet. So we can look over here, and if you hover over the protein section in your macronutrient targets, it's going to give you a list of your top protein intakes. Here we go. So eggs, cheese, and another egg. I'm going to put eggs with poultry. Egg times 2. Cheese is a dairy product. And then if we go back, the marinara sauce had some protein in it, so that actually is a recipe that I made, and those protein from there was going to come from beans and legumes. Marinara sauce. The smoothie, that protein is a dairy source. It's another recipe I created in here. So I can put that up here. Kefir smoothie. So since that smoothie is a mixed dish, you'll see what I've done is write the thing I know that's contributing the protein, and then also writing the dish or the food that it came from. So the smoothie also had some nuts and seeds in it. Nuts, seeds. Well, let's be more specific. It had flax seeds and almonds. Smoothie. And then what else? The brown rice. So that's a grain. You put brown rice. Cow peas or chickpeas. That is a bean, legume. Cowpeas. Cabbage is a vegetable. You don't have to put that. I must have entered a lot of cabbage here. The whole grain seeded sourdough. So you're going to get some protein from the grains and from the seeds in that. So you can put some whole grain bread. And then seeds from whole grain bread. So probably your sources are going to look very different from these. I just sort of entered some foods that were easy. This wasn't actually a day of eating for me. But please just kind of note the distribution and make sure that you're being specific there. So next you're going to use that information to answer the reflection questions. So this first one is asking whether you were surprised at how your consumption of protein compared to the recommended intake. And I want you to expand on that. So if you were surprised, please tell me why you were surprised. And then tell me about the sources of proteins you consumed. For example, often people are surprised at how much protein actually comes from plant sources. This piece is important. So name 3 things you think you're doing well when it comes to protein intake. So if this were me, I would say, well, I'm meeting my protein recommendation. So I see that I'm getting about 116%. That's not too far over. And I'm getting plenty of plant-based protein sources. And I don't know what else. Well, those are just 2. Now, things I think I could improve upon would be a little greater variety. I had lots of grains, nuts, and seeds, not a lot of animal protein, and no fish, which is a concern. So and make sure that as you're writing those things down that you can back them up. So I am concerned about not getting any fish on this day, for example, because I know that the types of fats in fish are really beneficial for anti-inflammatory processes and disease prevention. It's something like that. So then this last question is asking you to make 2 really specific goals or write down 2 really specific things. So for me, since I'm concerned about fish, I could write that I will put some smoked salmon on my egg in the morning, or I will have salmon burgers once a week, something like that. I just want you to think hard about how to implement it and not be so general, like, I'm going to eat fish more. That's not, you don't actually have to do these things. I can't follow you around and make sure that they happen, but I want you to think through something very specific about how it could potentially happen. So that's it. Email me if you have some questions.